It's one of my favorite phrases in the Gospels when we see Jesus do something out of compassion. We see it all over in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I have a few verses from Mark just to show, because we are called to follow Jesus, and if we're called to follow Jesus, we're supposed to be like Jesus, and Jesus was often moved with compassion. Mark 1:41 says, moved with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched him. I am willing, he told him, be made clean. In this story, Jesus is healing a leper, someone who would be ostracized and not invited into town, who you definitely weren't supposed to touch if you weren't unclean. But moved with compassion, Jesus touched him. And then in Mark 6:34, it says, when he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Then he began to teach them many things. This is the story where he teaches them all day, and then there's a bunch of them, and they're hungry, and he feeds them. I don't really understand this story a lot, because if I'm going to leave my house, I live in Castle Rock, so sometimes I'll be in town all day in Kelsey and Longview. I don't leave my house without knowing the 3 meals and probably 4 snacks that I'm going to eat. So I don't understand why people would go follow this rabbi and not bring food. If I'm going somewhere 4 hours, I got a granola bar in my bag. I think I always have a granola bar in my bag. But Jesus has compassion. He teaches them and feeds them. And then in Mark 8:2, it says, I have compassion on the crowd because they've already stayed with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. This is when Jesus feeds 4,000. And then Mark 9:22, it says, and many times, this is a father speaking about his son, and many times it has thrown him into fire or water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help. This man asks Jesus for compassion, and Jesus does help. And I think this story is, like I said, an enormous act of compassion. And I think those are wonderful. When we have opportunities that God gives us to show enormous acts of compassion, I think we should. But I think we can also show compassion day to day in little things, whether it's in line in Winco, whether it's with an annoying student that's sitting next to you at school, whether it's with a boss that wants to talk to you about listening to instructions. But we can show compassion in big and little things to people that are like us and to people that are unlike us. If we claim to be followers of the way of Jesus, we must be a people of compassion. Our devotion to the Lord has to be lived out in how we treat those around us. Another quote that stuck with me from Andrew Murray's book, from the same chapter, it says this: it is a solemn thought that our love for God is measured by our everyday relationships with others, except as its validity is proven in standing the test of daily life with our fellow men. Our love for God may be found to be a delusion. It is easy to think that we humble ourselves before God, but our humility toward others is the only sufficient proof that our humility before God is real. Your last blank, a question that I have for us as we head into this week, is who can I be a neighbor to this week?